Back to school is still a thing, and the headline number is school spend is up 6%. But the way that I think about it is you really have to unpack that, and the devil's in the details. So the average says the consumer is going to be spending more. But if I look at 10 consumers and how they're thinking about it, you have basically 4 of those consumers are going to spend more. 4 of those consumers are going to spend about the same, and 2 of them are going to spend a little bit less, and that all nets out to about 6%. So it's really interesting to see that of those consumers, there really is a discrepancy across the mix.
We had an economist in here in your seat just about an hour ago who said they think the K-shaped economy is becoming less pronounced. Do you see that?
It's funny because I was thinking we're doing back to school, and there's a lot of other letters in the alphabet than K. I definitely think there is that you still see this. There's the haves and the have-nots, and then there's the kind of the steady of the ship, which is a very large component right now of at least back to school spend because that's not really discretionary. That's quasi-utilitarian spend. But what I really like to see is when I look at the fringes of the data. So if I continue to unpack those 10 consumers, there's 4 that are spending more. What are they really doing? 2 of those consumers are making trade-offs. So they're going to spend less going out and dining out, and they're doing things at home. They might stop to do those vacations that they were doing over the summer. There's 1 of those that are making sometimes kind of like not sustainable choices, like dipping into spending. But there's 1, and this is the one that I kind of think they're taking my survey and rolling their eyes a little bit of, I don't need to change my behaviors to spend more on school. So that's 1 in 10 consumers saying that across tuition. So when we ask tuition hikes, there's a question in our survey about that. There's something about the soccer spend. So it's no joke, the 3 kits, the cleats, the shin guards, the kind of training, of the after-school enrichment activities after tutoring.
Is that's what athletics is called at KPMG?
and it's kind of half and half. So we could either pay for tutoring, or they're probably doing both because it's a multi-select question. But half of the parents that pay for enrichment activities, they're spending on enrichment.
You're going to kill me.
We have a lot of thought going into
the scam on this is I'm going to go to my school. We're going to a lacrosse camp at Disney World for a week. An enrichment activity week at Disney World is 3.5 days.
Oh.
You're paying for the week.
Yep.
But all in they got the enrichment,
and they do it really well, I have to say.
They do it really well.
I have firsthand knowledge of going to soccer tournaments over the holidays.
So what does $4.25 gas mean for the consumer, really? So we're right back there again?
Well, it's right back there in the average. The last time that I was here, we were talking about gas prices, and they have spiked again. The amount that the average consumer spends on gas is about what we suggest in our survey that consumers are going to spend. So for the consumers that are at the upper echelons and brackets, it's not as much of the percentage of the budget. But for those whose budget, is only $4,000 or $5,000 a month, then that really starts to hit. And that's where you see consumers buying early. So Prime Day was earlier than it's been in the past 5 years, and people are buying those utilitarian products like, you got the core school supplies, but you also send stuff in that are personal care and hygiene. You've got 1 backpack full of notebooks, but you have 2 sacks full of, Kleenex and all those other kinds of things. Those things are putting more stress on the bottom kind of it's a higher
This is
percentage.
the most depressing
I'm just
conversation
glad
of the day.
my kids are grown.
Julia Wilson depressing us. She's principal for the Paychecks Empty Consumer and Retail Strategy, KPMG, 8:30 in the morning, and in 4 hours, I think it's a Fed meeting, maybe 5 hours we'll call that, futures a negative 5-year. And the president's comments on the attack last night in Jordan certainly weighing on the market. Brent crude over $90 a barrel. Paul Sweeney with Julia Wilson.
So, Julia, the good news is, the inflation's out there. It's an issue, but the consumer's got a job. That's probably the biggest part of just, I would think, retail sales is when we look at the retail sales.
It takes more than one exogenous shock to really bring the U.S. consumer down. So, they're continuing to spend. There's nothing that's really taken a huge swath of the U.S. consumers and taken away the paycheck, and that's where you see the retreats that we did when we had COVID, when we have any of the other major recessions. So they're continuing to spend, and they're spending begrudgingly, but we're seeing really strong earnings coming out from those core consumer companies, and I think it's a result of the resilience of the consumer.
What do you see in uses of charge cards, or what's it called, pay-as-you-go?
Yeah.
What's the dynamic there that KPMG sees?
Yeah, so that is, when you're talking about the consumer spending more, there's places that they can cut back, and you do see that when we have one of our key graphs that I love to look at is taking everything that's, essentials, your house and your car, and your groceries on one end, and things that are really non-essential, and the things that are dipping the biggest are the large purchases, travel, the toys, and electronics. All of those things are kind of low. But the middle of the pack, they're still spending on apparel and footwear and some of the things that, you can really, do I need it this month or do I need it next month? So they are spending, and there are some of the consumers that are dipping into savings or putting it on credit cards. So you do see those two things slipping up, and that's where we start to say there's a little bit more softness in the consumer. It's kind of increasingly going that direction.
And the consumers going to the store, they're not just clicking, right? For a while there, we thought there would be no more department stores out there and the malls would be dead, but that's not what we're hearing.
No, the 90s are back in a lot of ways. So, if you look at generationally, the ones that are most time-strapped are your millennials and your Gen Xs, and they're the ones that are using, and they have a little bit more, on average, they have more money to spend on higher prices. But the youngest generations, and you have to think about the Gen Alphas are really, there's a blended back to school. They're the ones that are going off to college. They're the ones that were born really late. It's really scary to say how what year are we talking about? Yeah.
Gen Alphas?
Gen Alphas have things that, they have their own credit card or spending money. And so there's definitely ways that they can either have their own credit card, or there's, different products that, a parent can control.
Like it's Sephora.
Yeah.
So those kids that are on the soccer field
keep it going.
are using their spending money at Sephora.
They have to hydrate their face after soccer practice.
They do. Hydration is important. It's one of those areas that it goes in your body or on your skin, and sunscreen is definitely, the sun stays out longer. So those sun products are continuing to elevate our specialty beauty.
Kids are living large.
This is just, Julie, it's like, this is the most depressing.
I can see my charge card here for my son in Tokyo. I see where he eats every day.
You know what the fundamental thing is? Room, board, and tuition out of state at William & Mary is $71,000 a year.
And it's worth every penny.
And that's a bargain.